What's up guys, Jace2Cents here, and we're doing an Ask Me Anything today. That's where basically I went to Twitter and I was like, ask me anything. And we're gonna answer those questions today. This is what we do when we run out of ideas and our YouTube channel's failing and people are like, look at Jay, he's got no ideas. And I mean, you're right. That's why we're reaching out to you guys. The new Escade Series fans from Fantex features a 9-blade design for optimal airflow while keeping noise levels tame for a non-intrusive and efficient cooling experience. Speeds are rated from 500 to 1500 RPM with a max airflow of 84 CFM, making them the perfect choice for optimal case ventilation. The Fantex SK PWM fans come in both non-RGB and daisy-chainable digital RGB for a clutter-free installation. To see all the specs of the SK Series fans from Fantex, follow the sponsored link in the description below. We know we don't get as many views on this video, and that's perfectly fine because it means we get to actually interact with you guys directly and answer some of your questions. And I have no idea what's coming in this round because Phil vetted all of them and he'll be asking me them as we go, and I have no idea what they are. Normally I vet these questions, so who knows what's gonna happen.
All right, so the first question is, what is one of the biggest facepalm moments you've had while building a system? One time I didn't have the CPU power cable plugged in all the way. Talk about a heart attack moment. So anything along the lines of like...
That's such a basic failure that he had. Like, at least that's like an easy click.
This is one of the biggest facepalm moments.
I don't know. I mean, I keep coming back to drilling a hole in the motherboard because I really thought I was doing the right thing, but it wasn't. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, it's back when the EK Predator AIO very first launched and they had a self-retained screw system in their bracketry that was designed for either like the 11XX socket or a 20XX socket. And you had to have those go down through the mount mechanism for the X series sockets, and there wasn't a hole in the motherboard. And I looked at other motherboards and I'm like, those have holes there, so I just drilled through them. There was a multi-layer PCB with traces going through there, so I killed a motherboard.
Rodney Rogers Jr. asks, how's the working out going? What do you feel you've learned from nutrition and weightlifting? Personally, all of the above is a hobby for me.
No, seriously.
I mean, seriously though, that's not even...
The COVID-15 was worth a little bit more than 15 for me this year. No, honestly, weight is always going to be this for me, and that's directly attached to this doing this. Honestly, no, quite honestly, when I'm feeling good, I'm losing weight. When I'm not, I'm gaining weight, and that's part of the weight loss, weight gain struggle of someone that's big. Now, here's the science behind it. And it's just like when you build muscle. When you build muscle, you've created extra muscle tissue. And although you may not be using that muscle and it may atrophy a bit, that muscle tissue is still there. And it doesn't take as long to rebuild it if you've taken a break from, say, lifting, as you built it the first time. Because you're just getting more blood flow back to that muscle and revigorating it. The same thing happens with fat cells. When you build a lot of fat in your body, those fat cells are there. They become depleted, but they're still there. And they want to have fat in them. So that's why you always hear about people regaining their weight, because you slip up and you regain weight really quickly. So I've been on an upswing. I was on an upswing earlier this year during all the COVID stuff, and then I've gotten it under control, and we've been back to the gym now for about 6 weeks, taking this, well, as safely as we can anyway. Fortunately, I go to a private gym that's very socially distant friendly and very clean, bottles everywhere, spraying stuff down, and very rigorous rules. They take your temperature when you go in, all that sort of stuff. But it's one of those things too where at any moment that could shut down again. And I've already got a backup plan in place. I've started riding the bike again and Coconut Monkey Road with me. It's just like anything else. It's a constant struggle. As for advice, my only advice I could give you, I think safely, would be consistency. Be consistent, do something, reduce your intake, increase your movement. That's the simple formula.
Call Me David asks, forgive me if you've covered this before. I've only been following you for less than a year.
I won't forgive you, but go ahead.
I won't forgive. What was the trigger that made you finally want to lose all the weight?
So in 2008, I had a really bad car crash. I was rear-ended on the freeway while sitting in traffic, and it was really bad. I was about 490 pounds or so when that accident happened. The amount of people it took to do basic triage, to move a guy that size, to get him on the gurney, to get the gurney up and locked, while in the ambulance on the way to the hospital, they couldn't even get an IV in my hand. One, because my hand was too fat, so they were having a hard time finding veins. Two, the gurney kept coming unhitched, if you will, from its locks that hold it down. And so every time the ambulance would take a turn, I would just like slide around in there. So I have this very vivid memory, although it was traumatic memories are very fuzzy, if you will, but I had this very vivid memory of 2 male firefighters and a female firefighter because they were firefighter paramedics, and it was a paramedic firefighter unit, not like AMR or anything like that. They were sitting on the bench across from me. And it's one of those big vans, like big square vans, not the little like converted vans. And they were sitting there leaning back with their feet wedging me against the wall, like all 6 legs, right? Shoving that thing, because that's what it took to keep me from moving around in there. And then at the hospital, I didn't fit in any of the MRI machines. I didn't fit in any of the CT scan machines. They did not know how to work on a person of my size. My wife was also 1 month pregnant during all of that. And considering the amount of injury that I had, plus how hypertensive I was, they were concerned about me having a stroke during that incident with that trauma, because my blood pressure was going to something like, it was like 210 or 220 over like 160. It was like something stupid high. I didn't think I was gonna ever meet my daughter at that rate if I didn't do something about it. So that was the trigger. I wanna say, well, health. But I mean, people who get as big as I was don't have concerns with health. That's the reality of it.
So this is a question that like 10 million people have asked, so I think we should just answer this once and for all.
There's no once and for all in this industry, man.
Zerser asks, how long should you wait to upgrade your system? So you wait a year, well, new hardware's coming next year. You wait another year, well, new hardware's still coming. Will it always be a frog in boiling water? Is there a good time to turn off the burner?
It's time to upgrade when your computer no longer does what it is you need it to do in the time you need it to do it. That's always been my answer. Now, we always know there's a particular launch cycle that a lot of companies tend to follow. Usually, Computex is when the new stuff is debuted. Computex, as we know, this year did not happen. So a lot of companies had very online type little paper launches of their own. We know nothing about when NVIDIA's new graphics cards are coming, but we know that as we approach the 2-year mark, they're close. Intel has already launched the 10th gen series processors, and we know that Intel won't come out with anything again this year. So in terms of processors, if you're deciding to go with Intel, it's safe. If you're waiting for AMD's 4th gen, not 4th gen, I guess 4000 series, true 4000 series processors, I would expect sometime around fall of this year. I would also expect their Navi graphics cards to be out around the time of console launches. That's all happening this fall. We are very close to fall. We are in the middle of Q3 right now. So when it comes to launch of new hardware and stuff, I think if you buy something right now and you're the kind of person that's like, I have to have the latest and greatest, you might be disappointed in the next couple months. If you're the person that's just like, my computer is 10 years old, I need something now, you're gonna get magnitudes of 10 times more performance versus what you currently have if you're on anything that old, especially if you're on like 1st gen Ryzen or FX or let's say 5th gen, 4th gen Intel, whatever. You're gonna see massive improvements. And at the end of the day, if you're happy with those improvements, ignore what comes out after that or you're always gonna be disappointed. And if you always wait for the next thing to come out and then you're worried about the next thing after that, you're never gonna buy anything.
Dana LeBlanc asks, I hereby challenge you to list off 3 positive things about Molex connectors without severely and irreparably damaging your soul.
Okay, 3 positive things about Molex connectors. 1, their pinout is very simple.
No, they suck.
Their pinout is very simple. It's 2 grounds, a 5 volt and a 12 volt.
Fair enough.
They're replacing that particular pin extremely simple. If you buy yourself a simple repair or a pinout toolkit, you can easily crimp a new one on there, plug it in, and off you go. And then the third thing would be they're extremely easy to depin. So if you want to run them custom, like through holes and stuff you've made in your system to have much neater wiring and then put the clip back on at the end, they're the easiest to depin and click back in there. They're also the easiest to repair in terms of when that bar becomes bent, they're easy to pull back out. You do it too many times, it'll break off. But yeah, besides that, the problem with Molex is usually not the male end, it's the female end. I know I just basically said that.
No, you can't say that.
I can say that because usually what it is the receiving hole for the Molex penis is too small half the time.
But
I hate Molex, but I can find the positive in anything.
Jason L. Almont asks, what do you do when your passion for your hobbies wavers? I used to put a lot of love into cars. I still think about them constantly, but ever since working on them for money, I've lost the drive and desire with my own cars.
I have a lot of hobbies. I have models. I do enjoy, no, not women models, like I like boats. I like gaming. I like my cars. I like computer building and doing custom stuff with computers. That's become my job, so that's not really a hobby anymore. But when I'm like feeling kind of fed up with one, I just move on to another one and then I go back to it. It's like I spent the first month of quarantine building that Yamato. It was supposed to take me a year. I spent every moment I was awake working on it. I did almost 400 hours in the first month on that thing. And then I burned myself out at that rate. So I started building some other ones and I put them aside and I can come back to them later. So
I think that might be like a function of both of our like ADD brain, where it's like we latch onto something.
You know, we learned that attention deficit disorder does not just mean that you can't focus on anything.
It means you hyper-focus.
You hyper-focus. Yeah, and then to an unhealthy level. Oh, well, yeah, like I just said, I work on computers for money now, and that's not my hobby anymore.
Yeah.
It doesn't share the same level of passion that it used to. I mean, it does, but a different way.
Yeah.
That's why when I got to do Nebula, it was fun. The Star Wars build, that was my hobby integrated into a build, and it showed.
Bam Sales asks, you mentioned that Terry Crews gave you a set tour of Brooklyn 99. What kind of experience was that like? And was there anything about filming a TV show that you never thought about?
There was actually a lot of that tour that is translated into this very set I'm sitting in. When I did the Terry Crews build, I jokingly teased him in the end of the video where I had the interview with him. I said, you were gonna have to take me to a working set. Like, that's what you have to give me in exchange for this. And he's like, oh, I can do that. He's like, that's easy, I can do that. And considering at that time how busy he was in Hollywood, and I say at that time because Hollywood's kind of still effectively shut down right now. He was working on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He had some movies he was working on. I mean, he's since then become the host of AGT, or America's Got Talent. So in exchange for that PC build, he brought us to the CBS studio set in Studio City, I believe it was, which is, believe it or not, guys, Hollywood is not where people make movies. They make it north in the valley, on the other side of that Hollywood sign hill. And we got to basically hang out with everyone. Now, it's kind of funny, because you bring someone on set, the first thing you don't want is that person to fangirl and start fawning over some actor they're obsessed with and then get embarrassed because this person's like being a complete knucklehead in front of everyone fangirling. I told him, I said, I don't care about the actors. I mean, I like them, but I don't get all fan crazy. I don't get fanboy and all that. I just am like, cool, they're people too. I wanted to see the grips. I wanted to see the set designers. I wanted to see the camera operators. I wanted to see the process. And so when he heard that, he was super excited because what he got us was all access to the production of that day. So if anyone that's a Brooklyn Nine-Nine fan, remember, I can't remember which season it is. It's cool. A few seasons back, obviously, where Holt kind of has a gambling addiction again, come back, Captain Holt, and he gets kidnapped and he's thrown in the limo, and they're having the car crash to like get him out, and Jeffers and all of them are tracing him. We got to see the filming of that episode. About half of that episode was filmed on the same day, which was very neat. And we basically got to hang out with the directors. We got to sit in Video Village and watch the way they watched the monitors. We got to have an earpiece and a radio, so we could hear all the communications happening between the camera operators and the makeup designers, or the makeup artists, the directors. We got to watch everything happen on screen. Literally standing like right behind the camera as they're filming, like where Phil is right there, watching them film the scene, and was basically told, you know, okay, when the bell rings, shut up, don't move, don't make any noise, and when the bell double rings, okay, everyone can kind of talk again. So I got to see a lot of the Hollywood magic. I got to look at the sets and the way they were built, which is how I knew how to sort of do this, which there's a lot more work that needs to be done in here. And I really overbuilt it actually versus what they do. But anyway, it was kind of funny though. At first people didn't know who we were, so we were kind of told like, you can't be here, you need to stand back there. And then Terry was like, no, they're with me. And they were like, oh, sorry. And then suddenly like craft services was like freaking hand and foot and all that sort of stuff. It was a really fun experience. I also got to see how quickly they call cut, because there's a difference between cut and cut.
Yeah.
Cut is, okay, we are stopping for a moment. Cut is, this scene is wrapped.
Yeah.
And then see how quickly the choreography of about 200 people tear everything down, grab all the equipment, move to the next set, and get it all set back up. And that all happens in minutes. And to see the big doors on the soundstage just open up, because we then went out into the alley outside where they were filming outdoor scenes. And it was just also seeing them be in the middle of a scene and then an airplane, because they're right by Van Nuys or Burbank Airport. So they're just like, okay, hold. All right, again.
Like, yes, we have to
again,
do it.
And then
they have to deal with it too.
And then they start filming again, and then a Harley on the other side of the wall is Ventura Boulevard. And so they're watching them be like, all right, hold for noise, or a siren goes by, and it's like, Wow, we know the struggle.
Yeah,
you can't soundstage outside. Terry Crews is a very upstanding person, kept his promise, and I learned a lot from that experience. More than I think I would have ever learned by going to any live audience shooting, because I've been to that 70s show, and I've been to, Titus was another favorite show of mine growing up. I say growing up, when I was younger. So we learned a lot that day.
All right, next question. Jason Thiemann.
What's so many Jasons?
He asks, where do you find the time for yourself? I do not have the celebrity issue, but always seem to have people trying to pull me in one direction.
I don't have the celebrity issue either. I'm an E-celeb, and I would be like a D-list celebrity at the best. When I want to say no, if you will, I just turn off the phone. It's not like I go outside and I suddenly have people chasing me down the street like a real celebrity would. I mean, we go out and about and we get recognized. If I go anywhere near Micro Center, that's kind of a problem. But you just make, like you said, you make the time for yourself. You can't, and Terry Crews actually taught me this, tying into the last question. I had this conversation with him. I said, I'm getting to the point to where, like, if I go to Disneyland with the kids, or even on our last cruise we went on, I got recognized, I think, 8 or 9 times on that one cruise, and Brian was with me, and I was just like, there are so many people on this cruise who know who I am, and they all respected the privacy in space. But it's still, I asked him, I said, how do you kind of deal with that? And he's like, look, it's okay, like you said, it's okay to say no. It's okay to not be in a mood all the time where you're wanting to meet and greet and all that sort of stuff. He's like, you're human. You are not gonna always be in the mood of wanting to do those sorts of things. And so I've always been real cordial and like take photos and say hi and talk to people no matter where they are. Sometimes I'm really just not in a headspace where I'm kind of like what they expect me to be on camera, I guess. But when it comes to making time for me, the studio was the real first move of doing that. Now, this is not my first studio, it's our second studio. But the studio was my separation of work and my time. So when I was home, the time was mine. And the studio really provides that level of separation. And I don't have that many friends or family anymore really bugging me or asking me for IT work. I guess it's because I've kind of given everyone a computer at this point, and they all work because I built them. And so it's kind of like, okay, it's an investment into my time, have a new computer. People are gonna be mad when you tell them no. Like, and by no, I mean if they're like, hey, can you come over and look at my computer, it's having a problem? Like, no, not today. Well, can you tomorrow? No, I'm probably not. And if they start getting mad at you, your health and your mental health of being burned out is more important than their feelings about you not providing them a level of service they're expecting when you're probably not providing them any sort of paid service to begin with.
Peter Lee asks, what item have you used, tech or not, that was supposed to be great and was actually a piece of junk? And what item was supposed to be junk turned out to be awesome? Hope everyone's doing well.
Okay, the junk item that turned out to be awesome were those really cheap RGB fans. I don't even remember. They're super generic.
We don't even remember, but they sold out.
But we wiped out Amazon with that video. They're gone and they have not come back since. Yeah, easy DIY. There you go. But the thing that was supposed to be great that turned out to be crap is actually this monitor.
It's that monitor.
This is I think a 43-inch 4K panel from Asus. It's just awful. Probably the most ghosting, slowest response time of any gaming monitor, and that's why it's here now, because we only use it for benchmarking and stuff now, and it's big and it looks good on set. I would never use this in my personal setup.
JC asks, seeing as we could all use a break from the world's insanity, what are some of your best memories that involved a PC, whether it be a certain game, experience, anything, etc.?
I learned about the birds and the bees through Leisure Suit Larry. Did you remember that game?
I do remember that game.
I'm talking about the original, Leisure Suit Larry and the Land of the Lounge Lizards. I was way too young to play that game. I didn't understand what they were censoring, but I knew they were censoring something. And I didn't understand why if you went out in the public street with a condom on, the cop beat you up. And then a game I played a ton of when I was a kid, I would get up at 6 in the morning and play it. Because as kids always wake up early. And I was just addicted to Aces over the Pacific and Aces over Europe. And I think those were Sierra games. I can't remember if they were Sierra or not, but regardless, they were like Ace Combat Simulator, but really old. And I just loved it. That game, it's one of those, like, I kind of don't go and see if they have a version of it that you can play today, because I don't want to. My memory of how good the game was and how good the graphics and stuff were are lying to me. And I don't want that vision and that illusion, like that. I don't want that curtain pulled. So my earliest memories are actually when I was 2. And I think that's really early for a lot of people to remember. At least that's what some folks have told me. And it's a very specific photo I remember. And it's of me sitting on my dad's lap and him letting me click around on the computer. And we're talking like, this was like an AT like machine, like the black screen with green text, right? Really old. But I remember that. I remember that photo. I remember thinking how happy I was being on Dad's lap, typing around on the computer, being like Dad. And I think those memories like that, and my dad always being willing to let me touch the keyboard and never being like, no, don't touch, don't touch. And I think anyone out there that's watching that's had kids reach for their laptop or their keyboard while they're on it, it's like, no. My dad never did that. And you can see where that sort of led to today. So I would encourage anyone out there too that has kids that's interested in touching on a keyboard, give them a keyboard. Don't hook it up to anything. Just let them be next to you and click away on that while you're doing something, but let them touch.
Kyle, if you could, Kyle.
Is it Bitwit?
No, it's not that. It's lanky hunk of junk. Anyway, yes, if you could race your car in any race course in the world, what's your #1 track to take it around?
I think people would expect me, I'd go to the Nordschleife. No, I wouldn't. That track seems scary as hell. I mean, we know it because we've done so much on simulator with it, but I also know knowing the track has nothing to do with the pavement, like its particular grip level. No, I would love to take my car to like Road Atlanta. I think it'd be fun to take the ZL1 to Spa. Spa would be fun because it's a very, I think, friendly track when it comes to runoff. I mean, my car could get a lot of speed there, but still, it's not like Nordschleife or
it's like the nice Burgering.
Yeah, no, Road Atlanta, Spa. I think I'd like to drive Coda, but a lot of people I know are like, Coda's boring.
Coda and Coco! What does it feel like to be able to play around with really expensive stuff knowing 95% of your audience can't afford said tech or use mid to low range stuff?
I think your 95% number's wrong, first of all. I think a lot of us like to say, I can't afford it, therefore how can anybody afford this? But that's not true. I can tell you right now, and I kind of hope this guy's watching, because it was a fun conversation. When I was flying through Florida, we were at the Orlando airport, and there's a Starbucks down there right at the bottom of the Hyatt. Very nice gentleman. I think he was Indian. I don't remember where he was from because he had told me, but I think he lived in like Chicago or something like that, but he was flying for business. And I think he said he was on his way to India actually, so I think he was Indian. Really nice suit, real nice leather bag, nice shoes, and I'm the kind of person that like, I don't wear really nice clothes. I don't spend money on clothes, I spend it elsewhere. And you might look at me and be like, this dude ragged, right? if you go off first impressions. So I don't care about the outward appearance I give in my clothes, but I do know a lot of people like, first impressions. And my first impression of him was like, this guy's got like some nice attire, right? And he goes, just 2 cents. And I was like, hey man, nice to meet you. And he's like, hey, what are you doing in Florida? And I was like, the family, we're going on vacation. So he's like, oh, cool. He's like, yeah, I'm on my way to India, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, sweet. And he goes, so I've been dying to ask. And I was like, okay, here we go. What computer question? He's like, the 1LE, is it really as fun as it looks? And I'm like, oh yeah, of course. I'm like, thing's got, just under 900 crank horsepower. We started talking about tracking and this and that. And in the conversation, I heard, yeah, my GTR this. Yeah, my 458 Italia this. Yeah, my Porsche, blah, blah, blah this. I went, I got to ask, what do you do? And he's like, oh, I'm director of surgery, like the surgery department of blah, blah, blah. He's like, I'm going overseas right now to help put together like another program. And I'm like, okay, I get it. I can see why now you just listed like $1 million worth of cars, But anyway, it's times like that when I meet people and I'm like, man, people think I'm some YouTube millionaire. It's like, there's always someone bigger, badder, and better than you. And
they're in your subscribers.
And they're my subscribers. And it's like, is he subscribed just so he can see how wrong I am or anything? No, he was cool. He was a cool guy. I mean, who knows if I'll ever hear from him or see him or meet him again, but that was a really cool random encounter.
All right, I think that's it. Besides unless you want to answer the 10,000 parts list questions and like how to...
Go to Fiverr. There's 22 pages of people offering PC part picker lists. In fact, we're gonna be doing a video involving that very soon.
I was gonna say, spoiler alert.
We tend to do this. I don't like when Phil has a mic. Put it down. Stop it.
All right, go for it.
Feeling not very, you need to stop making that motion.
I was holding the microphone in
a very suggestive movement with the microphone.
Do your stupid safety intro, come on.
I'm trying, but you keep in your... We're doing AMA.
Sick.